hopefully we can come up with some great ideas of how to start going forward, how to really get things rolling down there and get people excited about it again. And I just want, I don't want supervisor or trustee to be here tonight. I want us to just be citizens of Hayes Township tonight and just have discussions to see how we can hopefully try to get this thing going. And I was down to the park the other morning and just looking around and trying to figure out and get some ideas going. My thoughts, and I've had a couple ideas that I mentioned in the email for a while, and I came by this job, I think, because nobody else wanted it. Supervisor always seems to be just the one that gets those by default. I admitted right up front that I knew nothing about fundraising. I still admit that, but I thought I had a couple good ideas. But after being down to the park and I was, just really contemplating, and I came back and I started looking through my fundraising, the first thing I came across is this magazine.
Sure.
This comes from the Charlevoix County Community Foundation. This is their 2016 annual report, and it was sitting there staring in my face. So I made a call to Chip Hansen, and I think, do all of you know Chip?
Yes.
Pretty much everybody know. Dee, do you know Dee Jantz, Julie, Chip Hansen? But I think pretty much Matt. Have you met?
We met in the parking lot.
Met in the parking lot. Okay, I guess that
We had to park on the grass out there.
That's good. I can't hardly see you over there, Matt. But anyway, so I called Chip and I just kind of briefly went over where we were as a community and some of the struggles that we're having. And then I ran my two great ideas by him, and the answers back was that won't work and we can't do that. So my ideas are just kind of thrown right out the window here. But Chip offered to come this evening and talk to us about how he feels, and I've never heard anything ever bad about Chip. I mean, I've heard his name 1,000 times.
If you go far enough, I
don't know, but I've never. I mean that seriously. I never have, and I hear all great things about what the foundation does, what you do over there as a president. So I thought, since I know nothing about fundraising, I thought it would be good for all of us to have Chip here tonight and maybe try to give us a little bit of guidance as to how to go forward. I still want to get your ideas. I want to, if you have thoughts or ideas, I want you to share those this evening too, because we're not going to make any real decisions tonight. We're going to try to hopefully start moving forward, and that's what really caught my attention on this annual report, moving forward, because we need to do that. So with that, Chip, if you don't mind, I would like to.
Thank you very much. First, I want to, by way of introduction, let you know that I don't purport to be an expert about Hayes Township. I know some of you really well. I know some of you a little bit, and some of you I just met in the parking lot tonight. But here's what I do know about Hayes Township. I do know that Hayes Township is filled with a lot of good-hearted, well-intentioned community citizens. And it seems as though we're in a position, maybe in Hayes Township, where we've got a little divisiveness going on. And also, by way of background, I did 27 years as a school superintendent, so I am well familiar with the public arena, and I've got a couple of bruises to prove it. And I mentioned to Ron today that if I learned anything in that 27 years, that sometimes when there's divisiveness because you've got a challenge in your community, oftentimes what grows out of that is terrific opportunity. If people will listen to one another and work really hard to try to find some common ground. And you don't have to turn on a television today. You don't have to hit a news network on your cell phone. You don't have to open a newspaper without knowing that there's plenty of divisiveness in the world. And there's plenty of that to go around. But it doesn't have to be that way at the local level. It doesn't have to be that way in Hayes Township. And as Ron talked to me today, one of the ideas that he had was, well, maybe we could encourage people to contribute money to a part of the project that they might be in favor of. So we could take some contributions to build a pavilion. We could take some contributions to build a trailhead. We could take some contributions to create a park or a playground area, and people could pick and choose and decide which ones of those things they would like to support. And that's probably where I threw the wet blanket on Ron's idea, because your fund at the Community Foundation won't allow you to do that. Your fund at the Community Foundation, which currently isn't populated with any fundraising dollars, because you've been kind of in this holding pattern. You had a pretty contentious election in Hayes Township last year. You've had a difficult time moving forward in the township with this particular project, because you've got people, I think, on both sides of this issue. Good-hearted, well-intentioned, good people on two sides of an issue. So your fund at the Community Foundation is going to limit Ron's idea. And what I suggested to him was, and I don't think it's earth-shattering in any way, and maybe it's not right for Hayes Township. As I mentioned at the start, I'm not a Hayes Township expert, but I do have a little bit of experience working to try to bring people together for the common good. Mm-hmm. And what I mentioned to Ron is that more than once in my 27 years of public administration experience, it was crystal clear to me in our school district in East Jordan that we would be better served as a community and as a school district and as a school family to take one step back in order to take 2 steps forward. And I know that some of you might believe that this horse is too far out of the barn to take a fresh look at things in Hayes Township, and specifically things with Camp Seagull. Maybe you're pressured by timelines for DNR trust fund grants or grants with the Waterways Commission, or maybe your own local budget. But I would suggest to you that none of those things are more important or more enduring than the relationships that all of you have with one another. That is the most important thing in Hayes Township. How you all live here and work here and produce this beautiful place that you can enjoy together. That's more important than any DNR grant. It's more important than any trust fund grant. It's more important than any pressure you might feel about your own township budget. The bottom line is, I think, from an outsider looking in, is maybe it's time in Hayes Township for y'all to get in a room together with somebody who's got some skills as a facilitator, maybe even a mediator if you need that. But take a step back. Think about looking at this challenge that you face, not as a challenge that should divide you, but as an opportunity to unite you, to bring you together as a township community, to solve this big problem, and to do it in a positive way. And what I've noticed from my experience is that if you can do that, and it's not an easy thing to do, wouldn't tell you that it's easy. Nothing about it will be easy. It's going to require that you listen to people you're concerned about, and you respect their point of view. And it's going to demand that they listen to you and respect yours. But everything about that process should bring you closer together. And if you can solve one little problem at a time, one little victory at a time, I can tell you, 5 years from now, you're going to be celebrating a lot of bigger victories in Hayes Township. You will. People who work together people who respect one another, people who understand that there are divergent viewpoints, but we can agree to disagree, and we can do it without being disagreeable, you will move forward in Hayes Township. So as I talked to Ron today, we had fundraising on our mind, and it just occurred to me that the issue that you're working on here in Hayes Township is bigger than the money you're going to raise. And if it means that you put the pause button on, you pump the brakes for a little while, you get together as a community with someone with some skill to bring you together to talk about this project again. Start over. Reimagine. Do it together. And then think about fundraising. Now, I don't profess to know everything there is to know about fundraising either, but I know a little bit about fundraising. And what I know about fundraising is if you have a project that has the support of many, if you have a project that isn't divisive, where communities have gotten together to create this common vision, and it might not be everything that Chip wants. It might not be everything that Ron wants. But somewhere between what Ron wants and what Chip wants, there's some middle ground. And that middle ground, folks, is better than where we are today. It's more forward than where we are today. If we can do that in Hayes Township, I will guarantee you that you will have a much easier time raising money for that kind of project than you ever will with a project that's dividing you. That's the gospel according to Chip. And again, it comes with the caveat that I don't know the situation you're in. I only know some of you a little bit, some of you pretty well, but I do know all of you enough to know that there are some good ideas in this room. Probably a lot more great ideas out there. And if history's teaching us anything today, if history's teaching us anything today, we're probably further ahead if we listen to one another and we respect one another. We find some common ground and we try to move forward from there. So I would encourage you, as I encourage Ron today, to pump the brakes. Take a step back. Don't run into a fundraising plan with half of your community thinking we're headed in the wrong direction. That's a recipe for failure. Build a recipe for success and do it together.
Thank you,
What I
Chip.
think.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
I
does.
don't know if it does, or if it doesn't,
No,
it's my 2 cents.
it does make sense, and I think it's that common ground that we have to start working at and looking towards. And just name them off. I mean, I'll name the first one. We have a fabulous piece of property that the majority of the township loves. The majority does. I mean, that's, is there anybody that disagrees with that in this room?
It's your opportunity.
It is. So I'm open for other things, I'm open for suggestions. I don't have all the ideas, I haven't been doing this a long time. Everybody just assumes that if you get the title of supervisor, you know everything and can solve everything, but that's far from the truth. I depend on all of you. I depend on the township residents to do that. And so we need collective ideas, positive ideas of what we can agree on. So any other thoughts? I'm just going to open it up tonight and just roll up our sleeves. Paul?
All right, so Chip, I hear what you're saying. And normally I would say where I am right now looking at it is, I look at it as, and I've talked to Ron quite a bit, and I've heard the kinds of things that they're proposing for this, to develop the park. And then where we are right now with the engineer's plan. And when we talk about compromise, you go from where we are right now, and I have no idea, down to a dirt road where is this common ground? What is it that you could do that could bring the community together? If you put in a kayak rack or launch, it would satisfy the lakefront folks just fine. But it wouldn't satisfy the fisherman that lives in the backcountry that wants to launch his boat. So, I mean, I don't know. We really have some differences of opinion, big time, and I don't know how you do it. And I understand that the whole idea of somebody that can bring us together and find common ground, but I don't know where that is. I mean, I can't quite see it. For example, we're talking about a 2-lane road to be built so that we'll have access to the lakefront, which is for the launch ramp, plus the beach, and get the handicapped people and all that kind of stuff down there and safely. And part of that is that we don't have the money for that, but the grant people, the waterways people who will give you the boat ramp, that money can be used to help both to do it. I mean, to get this road in. But they have all kinds of stipulations they want to. They want parking and asphalt and all this stuff that a lot of folks, even me, not real excited about it, but it kind of goes with the package. So I just don't know how. I suppose you just start talking about it, but we've been hammered. I say we. There's a split in the board. Mm-hmm. We now have Ron and Matt. They ran for election against the current plans. I ran for the plan. So did Robin, and so did Marlene. So it's a 3-2 split on the board, and we get all kinds of comments from the public on this subject. From, yeah, we think it's a great idea, to, oh, you guys are a bunch of dingbats, you don't know what you're doing. Whatever. It's just, we're going to be in over our heads, and we're going to wreck the land and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. I really, I mean, I know that I mentioned to Marlene, or Marlene mentioned it to me, and she's not here tonight, that Sarah Gay had said to her, said, well, can't we get together and talk about this? There's no room for compromise. Marlene's comment was, well, we don't, what's there to compromise about, you know? You either go with the dirt road and no ramp, or you go with what we got. So we are really divided on this chip. So how does this mediator do that?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't pretend to know how that would occur, but I do think, Paul, that there's got to be a couple of things you do agree on. That maybe you don't agree on the boat ramp. Maybe you don't agree on whether the road ought to be dirt or 2-lane asphalt. Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't even agree on who ought to fund it. Maybe you think the grant's a good idea, maybe you think it isn't. Maybe you think you should do some of it on your own and not have to deal with the red tape that comes with the extra requirements once you get engaged with a state or a federal granting agency. Mm-hmm. I don't know any of those answers, but I do know that unless you talk about them, and you do them like you are tonight, you're not going to make any progress. You're going to end up with a 3-2 board, and always somebody's going to feel like they were not heard. I'm not sure where that gets you. In fact, well, I am. I think I'm pretty sure where it gets you. I think it gets you nowhere.
Stalemate.
And right. I think we've seen that lesson time and again in governmental units all around us, and wherever governmental units exist, and just tend to think there's a better way. And I think the better way is to have good-hearted, well-intentioned people, and I have every reason to believe you're one of those. They certainly know that I am, and I think everyone in this room is. Get together. Start over. Pick the little things you can agree on and do them together. And when you find those little things that you agree on and you do them together, you'll begin to develop some trust in one another. And you'll also begin to develop some confidence in one another. And when you do that, bigger things might be possible. And it might never be. You might never get to that boat ramp. That might be the one issue that'll divide you for a long time. But that one issue that divides you shouldn't stop the rest of this progress from occurring if there are things that you agree on. And I'm quite sure that the right facilitator, the right person, could work in a room of 200 people and help you find out what those things are.
Chip, about 2 or 3 years ago, I came to a township board meeting, and this is when Ethel was in charge, and I suggested, and I was not involved in the Parks and Rec. I wasn't, part of the beginning process of Camp Siegel or anything, but I had suggested at that meeting about strategic planning. I said, this is something that you should be considering, getting a mediator, getting somebody who can facilitate that. And basically I was told, I'm just being a radical, and I had no right to be saying things, like I was attacking the board, and my intention was not that. So now that I'm on the Parks and Rec committee, just recently I brought up the whole issue about the strategic planning process and how I have been on different committees for the county, and I've been on other boards of directors where we have hired a strategic planning facilitator, somebody who's a neutral party, who has no interest on one side or the other, but that is their expertise, is to help you get through these kinds of things. If we had done this a long time ago, we probably wouldn't be where we are today, if that had been listened at all. But we are where we are today, but I've still brought it up because I still think it's an important process that we can help mend some fences and go forward. And I brought it up to the Parks and Rec committee, and they all agreed that they thought it was a good idea after phase 1. They don't really want to talk about it because they figure phase 1 right now is in the hands of the Army Corps of Engineers, and what happens from there will determine what happens with phase 1. I said that doesn't mean we can't still look at the process, because we should still have that process in place, because what a facilitator does in strategic planning is they sit down with everybody who's interested in an opinion and gets to voice their opinion. It doesn't matter what it is, but they're heard. And then from there, the facilitator, if they're a good facilitator, and the particular one I've worked with is excellent, and she works with community groups, she works with Township, she works with counties. And I know there's other ones out there. But that person usually helps you then, after you've had this big group meeting and everybody's had their say, then from there they pick, representatives from whatever. I want Jim to represent our group, and Dee wants somebody else to represent her group, and then they come together and they sit down at the table, and we've got lots of big pieces of paper out there, and we all write up what our ideas are. Sure. And then you start to have conversations where everybody feels like they are being heard, and you have to give and take on both sides to keep moving forward. And you finally get that process down to what's workable for right now, and what's workable for, what do we want to do next week? What can we accomplish next week? What can we agree to accomplish next week? Where do we want to be 6 months from now? Where do we want to be 12 months from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And the process can take as long or as short as you're willing to work on it. And we found it to be very successful. We've had some great outcomes from doing that from opposing sides. And I suggested it to the Township Board at the last meeting, and I thought it was well received. I think people were kind of nodding their heads saying, you know, that might not be such a bad idea, and we should have probably done this in the first place, but after phase one. And that's kind of the feedback I got.
We've already had quite a bit of public hearing and discussion on phase one already. But I think my experiences over the years is that the public process, like in zoning, I remember when I was on the planning commission, it was, you get some idea and you think it's a good idea, 5 acres instead of 10 acres or something like that. And then the room fills up, it gets around the township and it fills up. And you say, oh geez, a lot of people don't like this 5 acre idea instead of a 10 acre idea. So you gotta go back to the drawing board. The thing is, we've spent a couple $100,000 on the drawing board so far on all this. You know, we have public hearings at every meeting. There's a period of time where the public has to speak. And frankly, it's some of it's in your face type stuff. And I'm not sure, and then the board generally doesn't say much back because that's kind of the process, you know. We're here to hear public comment, we're not here to debate with you. But, and my justice to you, Ron, is that I don't know that the whole board and several citizens that we know have ever sat down in a roundtable discussion like this where we could just kick ideas around. It has been adversarial at every step of the way. Either resistance on my part or resistance on their part, you know. And as I was telling you earlier, I have no idea where common ground could be achieved. I mean, it's quite stark, the differences. But I can see it a real advantage if we're ever going to do fundraising, that we need to be able to sit around and talk, forget the formality, just like you said earlier. You're not the trustee, you're not the supervisor, we're all just, and you can't have a mob scene. You can't have people ganging up on people. It can't be a set up deal where the meeting is packed or something like that or whatever. But I think we could find the right people, Ron, to have a meeting and just to talk roundtable discussion. Maybe no ideas will be changed, but I think that it's much better than the current format, which is we listen to you guys and you lambast me and then call me an idiot and I'm supposed to agree with you. All right, so that usually doesn't work real well. But what would work is just common folks who are East Township residents and have a real interest in it as our tax dollars to boot, discuss it. So I could see that, but no promises. Just like
Well,
see that.
and I understand that, but, you know, and I think if we're willing to do that, if we're willing to, you know, I mean, I have to keep going back that it's really tough to do without a mediator there, without someone that balances everything out.
That's because there's no trust.
But I think that, I mean, starting right with the example that you gave, Paul, it's not near as extreme from a dirt road to what you coined as I-75 going down there. Okay, it's not near. I mean, the differences are not near that far apart. They're really not. And I think if we're just willing to discuss those and have just someone there to keep bringing us back into focus a little bit and making sure that we are going towards that common goal. I doubt whether there's a person in this room that doesn't think we ought to have a boat launch down there. I think, is there anybody here that thinks we shouldn't have a boat launch? I mean, I feel the same way. We need a boat launch. That's a part of the obligation of the acquisition grant, that we need that. We need access down there. It's just, I think that, you know, we're looking at it from different perspectives, that there's a lot of people that really feel that with what's being proposed is not the boat launch. I mean, we keep talking boat launch, but the boat launch is out in the water. We don't, that's DEQ, and Army Corps of Engineers. We don't even care about that. It's the infrastructure that it takes to do that, and the destruction of the natural part, which is so key to that park, because that park is a nature center in itself. I mean, it really is a nature center in itself. And that's where a lot of the differences are. I remember talking to the Parks and Recreation director from Emmett County, Camp Petasiga. She said, that engineer came in there, and she said, and they wanted to tear down this tree, and she said, I was out there and I put my arms around that tree and said, you're not going to take that tree out. You're not going to take that tree out. And they didn't. They worked around that. They worked around the natural environment at Camp Petasiga for the roadways, for all of that type of stuff. And I think that there's a balance. Yes, are we going to have to take some trees out? Absolutely, we will have to do that. But I think there's somewhere there's a balance. But I think that and I don't know whether it was the election, what it was, that separated us that far apart, but I don't think we can necessarily come back together without at least some assistance doing that. Leslie, nobody has to raise their hand, just start talking. This is informal. I'm not.
Well, I can understand why this is intimidating, but I come from a culture of mediation and negotiation. And I think, first of all, what's required is to name the problem. And the problem right now is phase one. If you're gonna talk about mediation after you get out of that, I mean, that's what's cramping the fundraising right now. That's why Community Foundation is sitting there. I've been talking to a lot of people, and I think that one group of people came to the board and said, here's a compromise. Could we talk about this as a compromise? And presented a petition, and the board said, nope, not gonna listen to you guys. And then found a million reasons to just blow that off. I don't know either whether we can heal what's been happening here, but I think Chip is absolutely, I trust Chip, and I've seen what he's done professionally over the years, and he's right. What's more important than anything is the relationship we all have with our neighbors. And that is in serious jeopardy right now. I mean, we have people on the verge of getting very, very personal. I've experienced a lot of it myself. And I think that you're absolutely right. There isn't a grant in the world that will heal that division if we don't have somebody come in and help us figure it out. And I think there are compromises that could happen on phase one. And I think if you don't do that, it's just gonna be more troublesome. I have been told several times, well, you know, we said goodbye a long time ago. This is the plan, we've spent too much time on it. You know, you can spend 5 years digging a hole. If it's in the wrong place, you need to stop digging. And I think that we need help, and we need help right now. And I think sometimes when you can't see the end, you need to trust the people that you trust, you need to trust that process. And I believe in mediation and negotiation. I think we can change a lot of attitudes if we go after that.
Chip, is there money in the Community Foundation? Do they ever fund things like hiring a facilitator?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We call those capacity building grants, and we see them as a precursor to organizations becoming healthier than they are. I want to piggyback on your comments about strategic planning. I've never worked in an organization well, I shouldn't say that. When I came to East Jordan, we weren't planning strategically. I came to East Jordan as a school superintendent in January of 1989. It's a lifetime ago. And we had board goals. My first year, we had 19 of them. And it was interesting to me how well we had done. We maybe did 10 or 11 of them got done during that first year, but 8 or 9 of them didn't. And it occurred to me that the reason they didn't get done is that they were board goals, and that's just what they were. They were board goals. They weren't the goals of anyone else but the board. So we began to think about strategic planning was starting to gain some steam as an organizational model that might help organizations go from where they are to where they wanted to be. And we started to plan strategically, and we had 2 school board members out of 7 that sat on that committee, and we had the presidents of all of our bargaining units sit on those committees, and we had parents and student representatives and business leaders and community members. And when you have a school district with 1,200 kids and 150 employees and 2,400 parents and 3,000 citizens, you've got the potential for a lot of things to go wrong, and you've got the potential for a lot of things to go right. And what strategic planning did for us, it allowed us to come together as a community for 20 years and imagine what we could be and what, if we became that, how positive that would be for those 1,200 kids that we had a responsibility to serve. And we just got better and better and better and better and stronger because of that process. And we started small. We started small. If you looked back at those plans that were 20 years old, they were tiny plans compared to where we ended up 20 years later. But we celebrated every little victory along the way. And with each of those little victories, we had more confidence, we had more trust, and we were able to do more together. And we've done the same thing at the Community Foundation. We have trustees from all of our communities, from Beaver Island, from Boyne Falls, from Charlevoix, Boyne City, and East Jordan. They all think differently, they all act differently. We think that's a strength at the Community Foundation. We think we're better when all of us don't look alike and don't think alike. And in those divergent viewpoints, we create plans that help drive our organization forward. And we know where we are today on November 8th, 2017, and we have a pretty good idea where we want to be next year on November 8th. And we've established some things that we can do in that year that will get us closer to that target. You can do the same thing in Hayes Township. You can. You've got the same potential that the East Jordan schools had 27 years ago, and the same potential that any organization has, and you've got people willing to do the work. And they don't all have to feel the same way or look the same way or have the same points of view. You're going to be stronger if they don't feel the same way. And you're going to find that common ground together, and good things will happen.
I came to the meeting this evening, and the meeting was labeled a fundraising meeting. This is a conversation about conflict resolution. I agree with you that, and I've been trying to write some grants, so I'm in total agreement that we're not going to be able to raise money with the way that the community is engaged with each other at the moment. Before I moved up here, I earned a living as a mediator, and there is a big difference between mediation and strategic planning. Those are not the same thing and not the same skill set. Some of the same processes and some of the same language, but there's some real challenges, I think, in making it work in the public sector. And it's not that we can't do it, but I think we have to be pretty clear about it. And one of those is, do we work on a majority rule basis in this township, or do we work on a consensus basis? And I think the decision making that's been done up this far is we work on a majority rule basis. We count up the votes, and I think early in our process we would need to make a decision about, are we working towards a situation where we're gonna try to resolve it politically? Or are we gonna set aside the way the government has functioned and try to revise that, and at least in this set of issues, to work on more of a how do we build consensus basis? And I think those kinds of things would need to be sorted out before we kind of decide what is this conflict resolution process going to be. But it won't resolve itself.
Hmm.
So I think
It
some
won't.
kind of deliberate approach is called for.
Mhm. Good. And Chip,
Probably a
maybe,
need for both.
probably.
Yeah,
probably a need for both.
Probably a need for both. And Chip, I mean, you probably can address the government versus the private also. The school system is really government.
It is.
It is government, so, I mean, how did you handle it there? I mean, did you?
Yeah, so, it starts right here. It starts at the Hayes Township Board table. And the Hayes Township Board table has got to be able to give away some of the power and authority that comes with being seated here as the five-member board that apparently right now is voting 3-2 on some issues, and transferring some of that guidance and decision-making authority to a broader group. That's what we did at the East Jordan schools, and what works is when the board leadership empowers the community, it actually comes back to benefit the board, because you end up with a healthier community that gets more accomplished and does it in a thoughtful way instead of in a 3-2 way. And once those, and I'm speaking about strategic planning now, Tom, not mediation, but once those broad goals are set and you've agreed upon how you're going to reach them, then it becomes the job of the board to provide the resources to get the job done. Your job is to create the conditions for that plan that you agreed on as a community to be implemented, and to be implemented with the kind of timelines that and outcomes that the group created. So, and then you review it annually and as a group. Not just as a board, but as the group that created the plan, you bring that facilitator back in every year. And you talk about the progress you've made and anything you've learned during that year that might cause you to change or tweak the plan moving forward. And then maybe what we do at the Community Foundation is every 4 years we start over. So we're concluding a plan at the end of this year, and in January we'll have a planning retreat and we'll start again. And we'll build that plan and we'll present it to our Board of Trustees in April, and we'll work the next 3.5 years like crazy to do what we said we were going to do. And every time we check one of those boxes, it's a validation that process worked. It's a validation that we did what we said we were going to do. We did it on time. We did it with the kind of quality that people expect, and it moved our organization forward. And I think that is completely possible in the governmental realm. We did it. It is completely possible.
I have a question. When you were on the school board, when you first arrived at East Jordan, how did you choose who was going to get together with this, your strategic planning?
Yeah, so we had an audience larger than Hayes Townships. We had 3,000 or 4,000
Right.
potential
How did you
people.
choose who was going to be at the round table, so to speak?
Yeah, so we had a committee of 45. Started with 45 individuals from all aspects of our school community. So we identified.
Who chose the 45?
We did it together. We did it with our staff. We asked them to send their representatives. We asked our bus drivers to send a representative. We asked all of our bargaining units to send the person they wanted. We did not select.
All right, but
those
you
people.
basically said, the administration said, all right, we want you, send somebody.
Yes, we did.
So you took all the players
We
that
did.
you could think of, and you said, all right, send somebody, and then you had this group. And then did you have planner come in to help you, a strategic planner?
Yeah, we did.
At that point?
We did. Yeah, his name was Jim Franco. He was a school superintendent from Tracy Unified Schools in suburban San Francisco. He was a national strategic planning consultant. He was exceptional in every way. He was a big city superintendent who understood how people got along and the dynamics of discussion. And around all of those topics that were brainstormed in that initial session, came back and worked with us to help develop plans. And then we went back to the group and said, did we hit the target? Is this what we think this is what we heard? Will you validate that for us?
So was this planner from San Francisco? Did he come in, or he or she, come in and help you select these 45 members? You guys did that yourself,
We did,
and then you brought in the strategic planner.
correct.
Okay. Can you tell me again, Chip, I wrote down capacity planning.
We call them
grants or
capacity building grants.
Building grants, that's what it was. Building, all right. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so we at the Community Foundation like to invest in organizations who feel like they are not as effective as they could be if they had some dialogue with one another. And usually it's around topics like strategic planning, maybe board development, maybe succession planning, maybe an organization that's had a leader for a long period of time and the leader's getting ready to retire. Another capacity building grant would be to provide support so that those organizations could determine how they might manage this transition away from someone who has been exceptional to a new leader. We call all of those kinds of grants where we're not investing in a product, but we're investing in strengthening organizations. We call them capacity building grants. And we're about to embark on a major initiative at the Community Foundation with a couple of strong partners to do even more in that area and provide a leadership series for nonprofits in Charlevoix and Emmett County to consistently move organizations forward and strengthen the nonprofit sector.
All right, so we'd have to, if Hayes Township wanted to get one of these grants, we'd have to have an application and apply and write a grant or whatever.
Well,
How
maybe.
does that work?
Or maybe you could let us know what you'd like to do, and we'd see if we could find some support for it.
All right. So why don't we decide what we need to do, Ron?
Right.
And then we can get.
We do decide that.
That's good to know, Chip. that
Yeah,
you
I
have-
think that, I think Tom's right. There's a difference between mediation and strategic planning. You might need help with both, but you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Good. Can I, Jim, tell me, what are you thinking?
I think it's a great idea. I just, the thing that I keep remembering is that he who has the gold makes the rules. You know, I mean, the $800,000 that we've lined up for this, they have specific rules. And it's like, we've done 14 plans for this waterfront. 14 of them. And the one before, I loved the 13th one was really good. It's, nope, we won't fund that. So those are the kind of things that we're running into, kind of stuff along that line, to where I can see this group all uniting on, this is the way we want to go. And the funders say, nope, we won't fund that. So those are the kind of things that, that really add that thing of he who has the gold makes the rules kind of stuff. And you being dealing with special ed and everything else, you have to know that. If you could make up very logical things to do for the district, and the state would say, nope, can't do that, or the feds. And that's, to me, I just keep looking at this. I think it's a great idea to do that. Maybe we'll come together, but I don't, after 14 different plans of the waterfront, I've lost a little bit of my enthusiasm.
This was waterways or with the DNR?
It's
trust
waterways.
fund?
Yeah, the Waterways Commission, it's a whole group of funds we put together, about, what, $900,000 that we've lined up kind of stuff. This should have been used about 2 years ago. I keep expecting them to pull the funds any day now, kind of stuff, you know. But anyway, and it's probably, the cost of the thing has went up, probably a couple $100,000 while we've been dickering too, over this time. And so that, I don't have a lot of enthusiasm that it's gonna succeed, but we gotta try something, you know. And so I'm all in favor of that. I just look at, it'd be interesting though what the things are is that, when we've brought in experts before, they're biased, you know. And so I worry about that. That if the person that comes in and, you know, comes up with a group together, if it doesn't fit the way some people want it, I worry about it not being accepted. Because we've brought in, at a little bit of expense, experts before, and because they didn't come up with what was wanted, well, they were biased. And so that, I'm just concerned about that, so.
Concerned that the facilitator biased the
Yeah,
process.
the facilitator, if that facilitator comes to an agreement that, you know, and I don't know, I just, it's a shame because it is, you know, 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, this was a great township. And now it's lost so much. It really has lost so much because of that. And so if there's some way we could identify a outside funding source that would allow us to put in what we want down there, that'd be fantastic. You know, that would be the ideal situation, to where there's some way we could raise the money, to where we could put in whatever, you know, we wanted down there. But the problem we run into is the fact that when we've come up with, there was one that really, it was like the 13th plan, the 12th plan, whatever, that was really minimal effect on the waterfront. It was beautiful. I mean, it really was leaving the waterfront alone. Nope, we won't fund that. You know, I mean, and so those are the kind of problems we run into. You know, I mean, and I know we've talked about this gravel road. It's very possible they'll say, nope, we won't fund a gravel road. I mean, you know, so unless we take and find out some sort of a funding source, which would be great, that would take and allow us to take and just do whatever we wanted to do down there, that'd be great. But right now, we keep dealing with the funding source saying, nope, won't fund it. And I say, can you imagine the cost of 14 plans? I mean, once again, it's like we've run through a lot of things, putting together things together. So but once again, you know, maybe there is a very, very skilled, you know, mediator that could really have success in that. I don't know. But I don't like being as pessimistic as I am, but I have gotten very pessimistic, you know, yeah, so.
Yeah, it's a practical reality, I'm sure.
Yeah, right.
So what I take out of that is if we do a mediation process, we gotta have somebody from the funding source at the table.
Almost,
And-
there's two, once again, we're dealing with a lot of different things along that line, but that one is one of the things of that, you know, I mean, and Michelle sort of brings in that strategic plan, because that was sort of the thing, is the fact that the board, I was on the board at that time, and we said, the whole point we bought this, we would not have bought this piece of property if it was sitting in the hill somewhere. The whole reason we bought this property was because of the waterfront, so we gotta get people to the waterfront. That was the whole point of buying the property, you know. And that, I mean, and so that's been the thing. That was the first phase, get people to the waterfront, you know. And that's what we've been working on for 5 years. Yeah, 5 years.
I believe things always happen for a reason, so maybe, you know, maybe it's not working out for a reason, I don't know. But there's a good, I had this kernel in my gut, you know, a thought, I guess, feeling. What if you've started us at square one, and you know how I've advocated, but if we started at square one, who knows where funding will come from? If we develop something that we do have that builds consensus, I think that also builds some kind of energy, and I think things, you know, begin to have momentum, I guess.
I mean, the thing is,
There's some reason that there's no momentum, and yeah, I agree with you, you know. we've run into roadblock after roadblock, but those roadblocks won't always be there,
The
so.
part that bothers me is the fact that, you know, we had to go down, I mean, Jim Malowitz had to go down on a special trip to prove to the Natural Resource Trust Fund that a boat launch could be in. I mean, he had to make a special trip down there because two of the people were saying, I will absolutely not approve.
I know, I was at that meeting.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that once again is the fact that we gotta put that in, and if we lose this $800,000 now, which is, I mean, the clock's ticking, you know, that I worry that we'll never put that boat launch in.
I worry about that too, but
And so
who knows what the future will bring?
Right, and it's almost like we got the land under false pretenses then, in my opinion, you know.
Well, you know what I've said. I'm not gonna reiterate.
Leslie was his.
Thanks. As one of those roadblocks sitting in front of you, I too have a lot of discouragement. I am also very pessimistic because this whole process has destroyed community. And I remember too how Hayes Township used to be. But I also think that a lot of it has to do with us not listening to each other. And I don't understand why this is the only grant we could possibly get. Why can't we look for something else? You know, I also remember when I came on board with this whole project, it was in 2014, and I was so excited about it. And the more I started to dig in and look at things, I got more and more disturbed. And I discussed those things and was told, absolutely, you know, we're not even gonna consider that. When that goes on, that's where your biggest problem is right now with phase one. If we could sit down and come up with something, I've talked to a lot of lakefront owners who were absolutely against the idea of a park. Absolutely wanted nothing to do with it. And they are now in a position where they say, okay, we get it now. We know you need a boat launch. And so I think there has been some movement and some compromise. But there's also a position that this board has taken, which is if you don't, it's our way or the highway. And I think that's very seriously.
But the fact we had to do 14 plans says that that's not true.
I didn't make you do that. The Waterways Commission made you do that.
No, we would have meetings and people would say, well, we just don't like this, we want this, everything else kind of stuff. Jim would make the plan that way and then they would shoot it down.
I don't remember that. Our history memory is very different.
You know, it's really interesting because I'm on the county planning commission too, and the county parks and recreation and the commissioners have the same kind of decision to make at Whiting Park. They applied for a grant a few years ago and were denied that grant. And they called this year and said, we have the money now. If you'd like to reapply for that grant, you're more than welcome to do that. And you'll probably be approved for that grant, looking at the same information. And the county really is contemplating whether or not to apply for it at all because they feel that they could do it better without the grant. They feel that they can do it the way they want to do it without the grant. And so they're having those discussions as we sit here. And it'll be interesting to see which way they go because Chip alluded to it. There's a lot of obligations tied to those grants. I mean, a lot of obligations and a lot of long-term maintenance and a lot of things in there that we have to take care of for 40 years in those, and we have to look really close. And I don't know that there's such a thing as free money. I don't know that really works, except for maybe coming from Chip, for a strategic planner, But, it'll be interesting to see how those go. But those are the kinds of things we need to discuss, and those are the people we need to bring back in. We really do need to do that, and that's, I'm sorry if I brought you here under false pretenses tonight, Tom, but it's really not because it's long term. We have to be able to get there. We have to be able to get to the point where we can raise money, where we can get people enthused about this park again. I've spent quite a bit of time down there actually, and you talk to people that are coming into the park, and this last summer was the busiest that it's ever been down there. And I don't know if it's because we had two different hosts or, and they both were inviting people in, or just the fact that it was a lot more presentable this year too, But the people you talk to, we just love this park. You know, we just absolutely love this park. I had a couple that I met down there that came over from Traverse City. He'd lived here all his younger life, and then he got married, moved to Traverse City, and he came back, and he didn't realize that it was open to the public. And he asked how long it'd been open to the public. And I said, no, about 3.5 years. And I guess it's been longer than that now, actually. But that was just this summer. And I said, so looking around, what would you do? Just coming in with, you know, just off the street, what would you do with this park to make it more appealing to the public? He said, absolutely nothing. I mean, that was his response back. Is that what we want? No, probably not. You know, but, you know, he said absolutely nothing. I would leave it exactly the way that it is. But that's, if you go down there and spend any time, you'll see what he's talking about. There's a happy medium somewhere. There really is.
Bob, you had your hand up.
I think a mediator would probably be a really good idea, just because I think that I'm hearing even miscommunication right now, like we're talking about like a dirt road. A dirt road could be just on the flat parts, you know, on the parts where it goes down the hill, it could be paved. It doesn't all have to be a dirt road. And even the dirt road plan was still for not just kayaks, it was for single axle trailers to get boats down there. And talking about like 14 different plans, all 14 plans have shown the boat launch in the exact same spot. And it wipes out about 650 feet of greenbelt space. And I think that 650 feet of greenbelt space right on the water there is way more valuable just left alone. Like if you guys were at the ribbon cutting ceremony when the DNR was there, the ribbon that they tied onto a tree is a beautiful tree, and they want to knock that tree down and put a road in. The people who designed it, the engineer who designed it, sat in an office for 2 years. He didn't go walk it. He didn't see where the trees were. It was just all an exercise in paper for him. I know Malowitz walked down there, but he's not the one who was doing the designing in the office. I think maybe the designer's even the wrong guy for the project. He hasn't brought anything that's brought us together. It's always split us up. Even when they presented the road and we voted on it, he came back with a road that was the least popular in the vote in the room. So I just think that mediation could really go a long ways with all of us.
You talking mediation or strategic planning?
I guess I'm a little confused on that. Strategic
First,
planning.
mediation and then strategic
There
planning.
has to be mediation, I mean, once again, to where that, you know, I mean, and somebody who's very skilled, you know, to take and deal with.
It would have to
You
be,
know,
yeah.
Very skilled, you know, to take and deal with it. And then once again, I think it needed badly.
We did strategic planning. I'm on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, and we did it like a month ago. We had our second strategic planning session with the same guy who came in. And it's really fun to do, actually. And it was painless, and it was great, and everybody left there in good spirits, and we were all excited to keep moving forward. And
That's kind of the point I'd make, Bob. It's a better place than where you are. I mean, if you sit around this table and you said, geez, you know, it's my desire, I just want to sit on the township board and have every vote be 3-2 and have divisiveness for the next 10 years. I don't know who would want to do that. So if you recognize that that is not the desired future in Hayes Township, then it's worth the collective investment to try to find a different way. And I will also tell you, as a funder, the Charlevoix County Community Foundation, I can't speak for the trust fund or the Waterways Commission, but I can speak for our community foundation. We would much rather look at proposals that were later than we would have liked to have seen, but done well. And proposals that have reflected the commitment of the organization. Maureen Radke, our program officer, I think is exceptional in this role. She vets every grant call that comes into the Community Foundation. 70 of them came in before our October 1st grant cycle, and 54 of those calls turned into grants. 16 of them didn't.
And I was one of them.
And well, you may have been. You may have been.
Yeah, and I was talking about funding a community process, and what I was told was that we'd already had enough planning. We needed to make progress.
Which
So-
organization?
I'm sorry?
We're here.
Oh, from Hayes Township?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So I didn't use the right language.
well,
If I talked about,
well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
But,
A good
getting back
strategic
to
planner
how
would have
good a
known
job
that,
she
Don.
does, the idea is that she will frequently let organizations know that their application isn't ready. And rather than submit an application that isn't ready, and the evaluation committees are gonna clearly see that it isn't ready, take the extra time. Create an application that's ready to be reviewed. Give yourself the best chance of being successful. And even with that, Tom, sometimes people aren't successful because we don't have an unlimited supply of grant money. But all things being equal, we would prefer seeing proposals that are well thought out and have the support of many. And if it means taking a step backward to take two forward, we have often recommended to organizations that they do that. That might not be the magic bullet here in Hayes Township, but that's gonna be up for you to decide.
I was gonna say also, Jim, you mentioned that we're under the gun, so to speak. I have read the acquisition grant backwards and forwards, from beginning to end, the application. And I've read the rules for applying. And it says very clearly that if your plan needs to deviate, that you just have to give written notification. So I don't see that we're in any danger on that acquisition grant as long as we keep them informed. In fact, we have several emails that support that. So what's wrong with, as Chip says, taking a step back? Maybe the waterways grant isn't the way to go right now, if it's too restrictive. If it's making you do things you don't want to do or that your community won't support, then it would seem like a good idea to step back and see what else is out there for funding. And I don't know, we have the park. The park is ours. Let's just enjoy it for a while and come up with a plan that everybody can support. Now, if you don't care, then go ahead, you know. But I think that is responsible for a lot of no fundraising. People won't give when they're mad because, you know, you need to address some of those problems, which I've been working on. So, go Jim.
I'd like to talk about the fundraising and what's been done a little bit. And that's why I thought we would call. First of all, I want to just get something off my chest. In the Hayes Township Sentinel publication, both Diane and I were mentioned on the front page. I think what was said about Diane is mean-hearted and shouldn't have been said. It upsets me. What was said about me, I was just mentioned as an aside. It said that I was the current chairman of the fundraising committee. That's not true. I have never been the chairman. There has never been a chairman of the fundraising committee. And the conclusion that the person drew, that we were looking for volunteers, wasn't necessarily that we had all this divisiveness. It was that we probably haven't asked enough people. So I think I just want to get that off. I would appreciate it if you not mention Diane or me in future publications, whoever might be putting this out. I think this is divisiveness in high gear. Moving on. We never really went on a formal fundraising kickoff. We never started it. We started down the path of coming up with a mission and that sort of thing. I've attended Diane and I attended a class actually that the two foundations put on, Charlevoix and the Emmett County Foundation this past October. Very good. The person that came in, it was a half-day session, and this is called Pence Consulting, and they have been very successful.
they have raised gazillions of dollars. And they have a method of building, one of the things that they use is a database that they set up. They identify who the donors are gonna be. And they develop relationships. You don't just go out and ask people for money. They're not gonna do that. I spent a little bit of time today putting together, and I won't go through all of this, but something that kind of struck me is that, you know, really, you only need 216 prospects to make your goal, no matter what the goal is. If they're good prospects, and you only need 25% of them to make your goal, whether it's 100,000 or $1 million or 10 million. And they've been successful. This is just kind of a proven way that this company and maybe many other companies have used. So we were kind of struggling because none of us, you know, some of us have been working on fundraising, I myself with my church, and there were other people, but we really never really had any expertise to draw on. The foundation did offer some help with a fundraising leader. She takes a little bit different approach than Pence Consulting. I mean, there's some commonality, but it's a different approach. There's probably 100 different ways to raise money. And then the divisiveness set in, and we felt that we couldn't go, unless we were in agreement, we could never really go on. The other thing that we were missing is a project leader. In order to be successful, you need a full-time project leader on this, at least half-time. Someone who can commit their time. We didn't have anyone that could commit that kind of time, whether they're experienced or not. So, you know, I think there was a misconception as to what the fundraising committee was doing and what it was charged to do. I guess for future publications of this, if it comes out, I'd appreciate it if you not say anything, because it's typically going to be an error. That's all I have. But if we go forward, we need to employ maybe this Pence Consulting, maybe they are the right company, maybe they can come in and provide some education. But they really nurture their donors. And, you know, there's some ideas that maybe we can do crowdfunding or something like that. None of that stuff works for big money. You really need to do personal contacts with all of your donors.
So, Jim, are you suggesting that we should look at a fundraising class like you went to with Pence and use them versus the strategic planning that Chip
No, I
talked?
think the strategic planning is good, but here again, if we go through conflict resolution as Tom mentioned, and then strategic planning, you know, we're putting this off another year or two. Is that what we really want to do? I mean, we've been at this for 5 years. I've been at a lot of the meetings when the planning was going on. I mean, we're at that point. If we're, we have whipped, I'll use the term, whipped our township into a pot of fermenting formaldehyde. I don't know what it is, but I mean, everybody is and that's all because people were just doing things like this, or doing things behind their back, or sending out flyers, and that all needs to be fixed. But if we go down those, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do the conflict resolution or the strategic plan. We should, but put the project off 2 years.
Jeff, would it put us off 2 years, do you think?
It would have the potential to put you off for a while. I don't know if it would be 2 years or not, Jim. I don't have that answer. A lot would depend on how Well, a lot would depend on how quick you could make a determination that you do need some help. Finding the right organization or people to provide the help and pulling people together to address the concerns that you have. And I would suggest right now is probably, you're probably not gonna do that until after the first of the year, because you're on the fast track toward the holiday season, and maybe it's a January project by now.
One of the things that I've heard tonight, I heard Bob, I've heard Leslie, and some of it, we'll just leave you two out of it for right now, but some of the things I've heard were the back to, you did that, whatever. And I think, Ron, if we can do this, you gotta knock off the, you did that, you stupid so-and-so, and just simply talk about what's your vision for this park and why, without, well, you did this, you dummy, and all that. Just really, and that's where a facilitator would help.
Mhm.
Say, look,
Right.
you're onto a personal track and get off it. We're talking about the park, and we want to know what your ideas are as to how we can do what we want to do, which we want to, like Ron said, we want to put something down there for a boat launch. It's just how big and how extensive and how much do we want to rip the place up. So I think if everybody just pulled in their horns and we could get together,
Yeah.
we could probably share. I mean, we could pick people that we wanted to be in this roundtable. I think, again, we have already I have witnessed where it's a set up deal, where people are called, the right people are called to come to the meeting type of thing. And that happens. And next thing you know, you got a mob scene, and then and what happens is people just back up.
Paul,
And they back up with the wall and they just shut down.
I just have a question for clarification. Are you struggling with that with the 5 people around this table? Do you have?
You mean the Board of
people-
Trustees?
The Board of Trustees.
Well, we're at a 3-2 right now.
Are you
Well,
disrespecting one another?
No, I don't think
as a
we're,
board?
I don't think,
I don't see that,
no.
not there. But
But you're
the
seeing
people
some
that
of it in the community.
come from the community that have a personal angle
Are
on
you
it.
familiar with the work that Evangeline Township did around this topic?
No,
So Evangeline, what is your neighbor to the,
one township over.
yeah, one township
Very-
over.
very-
Evangeline created a code of conduct. They looked at, I brought it with me.
Yeah, Chip, you sent it to me by email too this
There's
afternoon.
enough copies
so-
here, you can all share it.
wonderful.
Again, I don't purport that this might be right for Hayes Township, but I admired the work that they've done. Because Hayes Township, or Evangeline Township, looked at the way people treat one another, and they said, we're gonna treat one another with dignity and with respect. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. And we share this code of conduct at the start of every meeting, and we expect people to be respectful and to treat one another in a manner that is respectful and respects the dignity of everyone.
Yeah.
I think it's good work. I think it would be good work for any governmental unit to kind of undertake and to set the tone that we're gonna be not about pointing fingers at one another, not about placing a blame, but about recognizing that we have an issue that needs to be addressed and addressing that issue in a process that allows, as it says at the bottom of this, to disagree without being disagreeable. And you're not gonna agree on everything.
Right.
Never been a governmental unit that has.
No.
But I think if you create the conditions for respectful dialogue, you'll have a lot more agreement than disagreement.
Yeah.
Well, and typically, I mean, I ask before public comment that no one target anyone personally.
Mhm.
That this is, we're here to get information so that we can serve the community better. And most of the time that
Most of
works.
the time.
Most of the time, not all the
Sometimes
time,
it gets
but
tough.
most of the time that
Yeah.
does work. So, but between the board members, I think we're pretty respectful.
Board gets along fairly well with a few hot spots that pop up.
There are, but that's government, that's diversity, and I think Chip has said it several times tonight, diversity, I mean, you need that, you're always gonna have that, and, but you also end up with the best solutions too, if you've got both ends of the spectrum.
So I really think, Ron, that, I heard what Jim said, by the way. I really think we need to, I don't know that it's gonna be a step back, but I do think we need to provide an opportunity, and we know who the players are, to get all the players together for a meeting and to talk. And keep it really focused on what do we want? Anybody got any good ideas, whatever that might be? And if we need to have a facilitator, so be it. I mean, I just feel like I would like the opportunity to sit down and talk to everybody and hear what they have to say. Me actually listen, and they listen to me, without everybody having their positions staked out, which is where we are right now. And it gets a little hostile sometimes, and we will never.
No, we'll never get through that.
We just don't love each other
No.
like we used
Well,
to.
and I just think, I think we have to have a neutral person to facilitate that, only
So we need to
because,
work on that.
right, I mean,
And don't be thinking in terms of one meeting.
no, not at all. Dee's,
It's not gonna get fixed in one meeting.
Dee's been trying to talk for
No,
quite.
I don't. I
But it
just
might
have
get better.
a
might get
comment
better.
on what Paul said, is get the players, and I don't think you need just the players. I think you need Hayes Township people,
Right, you need a cross-section,
not just players, either side, I don't care which side you're on. But you don't always just them, you need those people, but you also need other people that are bringing different ideas that we as different haven't come up with. And we need to somehow, and I don't know how, we just need to get more people from Hayes Township to get involved with this whole thing.
right, you need a cross-section, and
Right.
that's what Chip was referring to. I mean, that's why you went out and you got representatives from every group throughout the school district. And we need young, we need old, we need white collar, we need blue collar, we need, those that were opposed to the park to begin with, and those that were in full support of the park. That's what we,
Not just the people that have always been showing up at the meetings.
no, that's
Right.
true.
But recruit the people who really have been hands off, and they might be our saving grace, actually.
Right.
Right.
Yep, I think so, because, I mean, they can go through those. I mean, it's like going to a marriage counselor. It's his side, her side, and somewhere in the middle, but we need a different opinion. We need, a different perspective.
But I think if we're gonna have something like this, we want it to serve a purpose. So we wanna have an agenda. We wanna get a cross-reference of people. But we don't want this to drag on for, like Jim said.
No, I don't think so
And
either.
It shouldn't have to. I think the biggest thing that's dividing us all is the road to boat launch. And I think if that issue was resolved, the rest of it will all fall into place. There won't be this animosity anymore.
Right.
It's just,
Yeah.
that's what we need.
I agree, and and that's the reason I wanted to have this meeting, because I want to start trying to pull that together. I don't think the timing has been right before this, but I think the time is now. We really need to start going forward with this, and I think we can do that if we get help from the foundation. Hopefully,
Well, I
we'll
would
be
think
talking to that.
I would think no one here is happy with the animosity.
No one's happy with the animosity.
No, and I think so many of us, like Jim said, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I'm fatigued. I mean, my enthusiasm has dissipated so much that I was coming to this meeting thinking, am I really gonna continue with this? And this discussion makes me very hopeful.
Good, good. Thank you, Annie, for
We
that.
need to talk about this Monday.
We do need to talk, we'll put it on the
Thinking
agenda.
about where we could come up with some funds to hire somebody and ideas of who we could get to do this job, to be our mediator or chief judge and whatever they're
I can
called.
think about
What's,
that.
what's Monday?
Monday
Board
is the
meeting.
board meeting.
I thought it was every second Monday.
It's the 13th. 13th is our board meeting.
That's just Monday.
The coming Monday, yeah, this is Wednesday, it's
Oh, you're right.
next Monday, right?
You're right.
Well, you have to watch the time.
Yeah, I know.
I was living a week behind.
Oh, no, don't do that,
So
Jeff.
Ron, we're gonna have lots to talk about.
Well, we will have, we got a pretty short agenda. I mean, we really do have a fairly short agenda, so I think it'll fit right in to that agenda. I think we really do need to address
Every
it.
time he says we're gonna have a short meeting,
Well, yeah,
we keep going and going.
I,
We always find something to talk about, don't we, Ron?
we do.
But I don't think you wanna have too many people at this meeting. I mean, like, so that it's so large that.
You're talking about the Board of Trustees meeting or
No,
the?
meeting.
Oh, that, okay, yeah, I know.
It should be a cross-reference of people.
We really do need diversity. We need to, yeah, that,
But include some of the players that have spent so much time and energy too.
mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely,
I know,
absolutely.
I feel like, Annie, we were so enthused when this started. We were so excited, and it's just like, so I can fundraise too, once we get this resolved. I'll be
Good.
excited to do it.
Good.
Do it under the circumstances.
Well, you know,
Well-
one thing I've noticed in a lot of years in public administration is that conflict sucks away your strength.
It
Oh,
does,
God.
it does.
Oh, it does.
And momentum and cooperation gives you strength. That's where you need to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough sometimes coming in and sitting in this chair. I mean, it really is. It's not, hasn't been a lot of fun. I mean, we have accomplished some. We've got some good policies adopted. We have made some pretty good ground, but township-wise, we got a couple roads taken care of this year that we needed to get taken
Got
care
some
of.
more we got to talk about.
Yeah, we do have to talk about some more, but, we can make progress, we can do that. And,
Absolutely can make
Yeah.
progress.
yeah, so, Chip, I want to say, Chip, thank you very much for being here tonight,
Yeah,
taking the time to do that.
Yeah.
We'll keep in touch, of course, and,
Happy to be here. I'm not sure I've been very helpful.
oh, no,
I
you've been
do
very
hope
helpful.
That all of you can find some common ground and move forward.
Thank you very much. So, anything else, Paul, that's it?
I'm ready to roll.
All right, we're not formal, so we don't have to have a motion or anything like that to leave. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Oh, good to see you again.
I think it was very beneficial.
Good.
So,
It would be nice if you could also, like Jim was saying, and, obviously, thank you. The Army Corps of Engineers is such a pretty part of a lot of this, and obviously they haven't come to a conclusion. It'd be nice if they would be part of it.
Oh, yeah,
Representatives, listen to you. And I don't know if you could, but it'd sure be nice to have
would
the
be
representatives.
really nice.
Well, there's one mailing list I'm not on. I'm glad I didn't get one of those Hayes Township
And of
Senate.
course, I haven't even facilitated strategic planning, so.
What if I got it?
Well, you helped get us to this point. Your suggestion last week too, so.
That's the way it is with small communities. The school from which I graduated high school, I started in that system in the 5th grade, and I was still a new kid when I was a senior.
Oh, yeah.
Holly, Michigan.
Oh, sure.
We couldn't have done, we wouldn't be.